Our explainer tonight, if you recall, during the budget reading statement, the Treasury CS had talked about Bodaboda operators and saying that he wants to ensure that they take up an insurance cover for passengers of motorcycles, motorbikes, Bodabodas as we know them. The Bodaboda Association of Kenya then said, not so fast. Where is this coming from? They claim they were not consulted and that this move would actually push up their premiums from what they pay now, about 5,000 to 7,500, about 5,000 to 7,500. They say it would go up and they would have to push that cost to you, their passenger. However, there's a number of reasons why, and of course, key on that is the safety record for passengers. So I want you to take a look at these numbers. These are from the NTSA, which puts the number of deaths from January to May the 20th this year at 250. That number is already an increase given the same period from January to May 20th of last year, 2018, which is at 224. This is the number of deaths. And remember, this is what is reported. We haven't even talked about those who are slightly injured, those who are seriously injured by these motorbike accidents. So already we're seeing an increase in the number of deaths between the same period this year and last year. And this is why the Cabinet Secretary is saying for the safety and compensation of passengers of the Bodaboda operators. But the Bodaboda operators say, no, this will not work for them. One of the reasons they talk about is that there was lack of consultation. They say already 60% of their members in Nairobi at least have taken up the third-party insurance, and they say that insurance companies are not quick to pay out. So now let's talk about what this really is. The third-party insurance is the one that covers a third party such as yourself if you are the passenger, or an item or a person that they cause injury to. That third-party insurance does not cover them or their bikes. That is what would be called a comprehensive insurance. But I spoke to the Insurance Regulatory Authority and particularly to the Commissioner of Insurance, the CEO of the Insurance Regulatory Authority, who says this is not the case, that what the Bodaboda operators are saying about an increased case of their premiums is actually not the case. What he says is that in the strict sense of the word, nothing new and nothing changes with this cover. All it does is have Bodabodas officially recognized in Cap 405, which is the one that deals with third-party insurance for motor vehicles, simply saying that Bodabodas were not recognized in that law that deals with insurance. It talks about matatus, it talks about buses, but has never really recognized Bodabodas as a means of public transport. So they say the premiums will not change, that it'll remain the same, but it's just a clear recognition of that. But this is what they are saying, the Bodaboda operators, that they need to be consulted, that they're a big industry that is often neglected and sometimes taken for granted. So we went in and got some numbers about just how big this industry is. Now, we know that there's 1.64 million registered Bodabodas in the country. But according to the Motor Assemblers Association of Kenya, about 600 of those are the ones operating as Bodabodas. Others are private motorbikes, others are being used by courier companies, some have even been purchased by government. But this is the number that we're talking about as Bodabodas, right? Now, they say this is a very important sector. Now, they have been doing a survey and have put together some of these numbers. And they say these 600,000 Bodabodas, each of them carries at least 3 passengers an hour. And they work an average of 12 hours a day. So that means that they help transport and move around 21.6 million people in the country per day. Now, it gets even more interesting when you take a look at just how this sector affects millions of Kenyans. When they surveyed these 600,000 Bodabodas, or at least a section of them, each of them said that they support at least 8 family members per Bodaboda. This is Africa. We know we look after our nuclear family and also those in our extended families. So that means that these 600 Bodabodas, which by the way, these are 600,000 jobs, that they help to support 4.8 million people in total. So they're saying this is a huge number and that it should be taken seriously. So how much money do they make? In an urban center like Nairobi, they make up to about 3,000 shillings per day. But let's talk about what happens in the rural area. Again, we're working here with some very modest figures. So in the rural areas, they can make up to about 1,000 shillings a day, and this is after taking away all their expenses, fuel, repairs, and whatever. So this means that these guys earn up to about 18 billion a month and 216 billion shillings per year. So they're saying this is a big sector that cannot be ignored. But how much money do they spend, right? Let's take just on fuel. The average Bodaboda spends about 300 shillings per day on fuel. Again, we're working with this modest figure here. That means that this 600,000 Bodabodas are spending about 180 million shillings per day on fuel. That comes to 5.4 billion shillings per month. And if you take that to a whole year, it's over 64 billion shillings that they are spending. They're saying this is a huge industry. No changes can be made by the National Treasury without consulting them. So you can see how big this industry is and how sometimes they say they have been neglected. But here are some of the proposals for that. And they're saying they have no problem with paying insurance for their passengers as long as, one, they're consulted, and as long as the insurance companies take time to do what is commonly known as KYC, which is know your customer. They say these insurance companies do not care too much about this very big sector. So the IRA is saying what it is saying. Remember, this is something that has been taken to court by various politicians in the country. We wait to see what happens, even as the Trade Ministry has organized some meetings between them and the Bodaboda Association to see if they can get them on board with those proposals to have them insure and cover you, their passenger. But they're saying with these numbers, Bodabodas are not to be taken lightly.